Guys, so the next thing that I wanted to touch on is kind of my general experience with medical professionals. In Germany, that was when I first really started to actively look into what was wrong. Okay, so I recorded the rest of the video a few days ago and then realized that part of it seemed to be missing. So now I'm trying to go back. In France, okay, I saw a doctor of internal medicine that wanted me to have both endoscopies done, both a gastroscopy and a colonoscopy, and I wanted to do it as quickly as possible, so I went and found another gastroenterologist, and I said, look, this is what needs to be done, and she had an appointment and agreed to do it as soon as possible, but hadn't yet received the letter from the doctor of internal medicine, and insisted on doing them both separately and saying, we're going to do the gastroscopy and we will do the colonoscopy later if it's necessary. And even though I kept explaining, we need to do both endoscopies, the doctor just refused to listen, which meant that I had to fast and be sedated twice. Then when she went in to do the gastroscopy, she saw that my esophagus had healed, which meant that my eosinophilic esophagitis was finally in remission, so she didn't take biopsies. But the thing with eosinophilic esophagitis is that you do have to take biopsies because sometimes there could be eosinophils present even though you can't see them. So in the end, ultimately, all of that was for nothing. So later I transferred to another doctor of internal medicine because she had basically exhausted everything she could think of to test. And that doctor also seemed very sympathetic. He would sit there and listen and ask questions, but then in his notes he put that he felt I just had a functional disorder, and at that point I was trying to work again and just reached a point where I really couldn't handle working anymore, to where I was like, if I had to go to work, I couldn't bear the thought of having to go to the store and prepare my food too. So I was just at this incredibly low point where I could not even emotionally handle having to push myself even more because it was just physically so strenuous. And I asked this doctor if he would write me off sick from work and help me apply for disability, both of which he refused to do. So it's like, I don't know, he was just putting on the facade of being a nice guy, but in reality he wasn't willing to do anything to help me. So then I made an appointment at the mastocytosis center, and the first doctor I saw there was really rude and impatient and wanted me to describe my symptoms, but at that point I couldn't find the words. And then she got on to me for not speaking better French, and I'm thinking, I've only lived here for, at that point, maybe a year, and it's not like I've had time to go to French class, considering that I've been so sick that I can barely manage to feed myself. Then I started being seen by the head of the department, who's her boss, who offered, without even being asked, to help me apply for a disability. And then when I tried contacting him, I, sent so many emails over several months. I tried calling his secretary and I could never get through to him. I never got a response. So finally I made another appointment, which I had to wait several months for. And then when I got in, he was just like, I don't have time for this right now. Give me the paperwork and I'll do it over the weekend, or we can arrange an appointment on the weekend. And of course I never heard back from him after that. Obviously this doctor, who also said there's no need to confirm the diagnosis of MCAS because the diagnosis isn't going to change the treatment. You know, he obviously seemed more focused on mastocytosis. Then I found a doctor who I thought specialized in mast cell activation syndrome, and I figured that would be the way to go because I thought I need to be seeing someone who specializes specifically in MCAS. So I waited like 6 months to see this other doctor, and once I finally got in, it turned out that she gets her patients referred from him, and they share all of their case files. So they do work together, but she's actually in a way under him, even though they work at different hospitals. She was also, you know, telling me that I hadn't had urticaria. No other doctor I'd seen had a problem with me saying this is urticaria. But she insisted that that wasn't what it was. I've had a lot of doctors in France saying that it's not anaphylaxis unless you're unconscious, which leads me to think that in French the definition is slightly different. And she also wanted me to describe my symptoms, and I just couldn't find the words. I said I'm allergic to legumes, and she wanted me to name each specific legume. Like, what do you consider a legume, assuming that I don't actually know what legumes are. And again, I completely blanked. I couldn't think of the words. I had been in Germany and I just got back to France, so I probably could have told her better in German, but at the time I was sleep deprived and, you know, just tired, exhausted, brain fogged. The words weren't coming, and never once did she try to just supply me with the words. And then she said, you know, we can test several allergens, so tell me which foods you want to eat again. And I just couldn't think of anything. And in that case, I'm like, you know, either give me a list to choose from, or give me some examples. The best thing you could do is to just give me some time to think it over instead of putting me on the spot where not only do I have to think of the food itself, but I have to think about how to say it in French, and, you know, it's too difficult for me to make a decision in that moment where I'm already so exhausted just being there, and, you know, that she couldn't come, you know, meet me halfway or help me out at all. So between the time when the head of the French Mastocytosis Center promised to help me with disability and when he brushed me off, about 6 months had gone by. And during that time, I was back in Germany, and I needed something to prove what my health condition was, what disorders I've been diagnosed with. And I thought my best bet was to look for a specialist who deals with mast cell disorders. So I found the specialist, and I made an appointment, and I wanted to specify that I want someone who knows about mast cell activation disorder, and I was told that this is basically a dermatologist department of a hospital, and all of them know about mastocytosis, and the one that I have an appointment with would be the most knowledgeable one about mast cell activation. And I got in to see him about a month later and sat down and talked. He took blood and he said, come back next week and I'll write something up for you. The way he said it didn't exactly sound that promising, so I kind of had the feeling like he's not gonna write what I need him to write. Well, sure enough, I came back the next week. At first, I was told to come back again a couple days later because he didn't have it ready, and then when I did come back, I had to wait for several hours, and finally he wrote something up, and I went in to talk to him while he gave me this letter, but of course I didn't have time to sit there and read it while I was speaking with him. Basically what he put down was, 1, I have eosinophilic esophagitis. Okay. 2, I don't have mastocytosis. Okay. The diagnosis of mastocytosis, you could say, is 70 to 80% ruled out, although there is still a chance I have it, but it seems much more likely that I have mast cell activation disorder. And saying that I don't have one type of mast cell disorder has nothing to do with the other. So I did get a chance to ask him about mast cell activation syndrome, and he told me he doesn't believe it exists, at least as currently defined. And third, suspected depression. He said in the appointment that he was referring me to the psychosomatic department, and I kind of suspected, like, that this has something to do with psychology, psychiatry, but I was hoping that my instinct was wrong. But once I left and I read the letter, it confirmed my suspicions. And I'm just like, why didn't you discuss this with me? Why couldn't you have asked if I've maybe been down this road several times before, or taken a closer look at my medical records? But no. My health has definitely been a lot worse since I've been living in France. I've been seeing a lot more specialists, a lot more specialized specialists, and French is my weakest language. So that, of course, could play into why I have had a lot more negative experiences in France. However, from talking to other people in different countries, I know that people have the exact same sort of dismissive experiences. Anything that's not language related. I think people have had those experiences in their own countries dealing with the same disorders. So that treatment is not unique to France. I would say that a small percentage of that could be culturally, that like French people are quicker to lose their temper, but overall I think that accounts for probably a very small amount of it. And if you live in another country, or you've been going through the same thing, then you probably have similar experiences. I don't know why I'm like stuttering so much in the first part of the video, but I feel like maybe it has something to do with brain fog. So I thought I would leave that as just sort of like a documentation, a representation of the way that this can affect your mental capacity. Let me know what your experiences have been. If you have had the same experiences in a different country, whether you're dealing with your native language or not.